Hello, welcome to day 40. And we have a few notes to take about Middle Ages in the West before we move on to learning about the Mongol Empire and also the Russians, which are influenced by both the Middle Ages in the West and the Mongol Empire. So that's kind of a good bringing together of everything. So please pray with me as we begin day 40. Dear Jesus, thank you for the stamina that you're giving us to learn all of these valuable and interesting things about the history of the people of the world. You love the people of the world. You gave your only son to save us. We love you. Amen. All right, 100 Years' War, the 100 Years' War. You probably have heard of this, but what you may not have clear and what I'm going to clarify for us today is that this is a war of England versus France. And it's actually more than 100 years, 1337 AD to 1453. And the bubonic plague is kind of factors in as well, which we'll talk about. The battle is for the throne of France. And I guess England's really putting some pressure on France because if you recall, just 300 years earlier, 1066, a Frenchman is crowned king of England and proceeds to divide England among his French friends. And who is that person? William the Conqueror, yes. So now England's going to try to kind of get some land on the main continent and try to influence France. Joan of Arc, you may have heard of her. She plays into the 100 Years' War. She tries to raise morale in France. She is convinced that she has spoken to God and that he wants her to, as a teenage girl, to lead the French army into battle because the French army is kind of shrinking away and the current leader in France is not leading in faith. Now, the English has a formidable force on their side, which is the English longbow. And knight's armor then is not used as much because the battle is getting farther apart. There's less close contact. And a lot of the knight's armor is designed for close combat. It kind of restricts mobility a bit if you're trying to move your positions. Despite the English longbow, France wins the 100 Years' War. After this, we're going to have a clip of Joan of Arc, a trailer for that film. There are many books and films made about her. Historically, she's real. She's a French peasant girl who, according to her, she had visions from God. Some people, including the Catholic Church today, consider her a hero in the faith, while others at the time especially, and the church at the time, condemned her as evil, as not hearing from God, but hearing from God's enemy. She does lead the French army in decisive battles. She fights as a warrior. The British get her. The French kind of surrender her as a prisoner of war, and she is punished. Hero, you decide. Back to England, the War of the Roses. So England apparently likes to get involved in wars. They're involved in most of the wars in their history that they can be involved in. The War of the Roses is shorter than the 100 Years' War, 1455 to 1487. And it's for who's going to be in charge in England. It's sometimes called the Cousins' War because there's the Lancaster House and the York House, and they're related. Lancaster red, York white. A lot of back and forth. No one really has the upper hand. Lancaster in the end wins. And this is significant because this allows the Tudor family who are with the Lancasters to take the throne. In the Tudor dynasty, from that we get some of the most famous monarchs in England. We get Henry VIII, we get his children, Bloody Mary, and Queen Elizabeth I, arguably the most effective ruler in British history. The legacy of the Yorks is seen through Tudor propaganda. I've told you this before, I'll tell you again. The winners write history. So the Yorks are painted as bad guys in this, but that's according to their enemies. So take it with a grain of salt. We're going to review key dates of the Middle Ages in the West. So make sure you have these written down. I would write them down in the list so you just have it clear. I will test you on these in an upcoming test. It's good to know these. In the year 800, Charlemagne is crowned emperor. 1066 is the Battle of Hastings. And it's very possible that, by the way, that our test is the next class, so be ready for that. 1099, Jerusalem is captured by Crusaders. 1198, Jerusalem falls to Saladin, who is Islamic. 1215, the Magna Carta is signed by John reluctantly. 1348 to 1350 is the worst of the Black Death, or the